jump into a new series today that I'm excited about. It's called Good Pharma, and we're going to really stay in this series for the month of June. But before we really jump into this, I want to take just a moment and encourage you this summer to stay connected. One of the easier things to do in the summertime is to disconnect. I love summertime. I love routine, but I do love what summertime brings, and that's a little bit of a change in the routine, right? I know some of you have your kids and you're pushing them off to summer school, and that's great. So your routine really might not have changed yet, but there's a change that can happen in the summer. And really what I've found is that a lot of times God can speak to us when our routine changes, because sometimes we get in a kind of a routine rut and we're maybe not hearing the voice of the Lord, or we're just kind of in this place where it's just the same thing, right? And when we change that routine, the Lord, I think, can really speak to us. And so I just want to encourage you to stay connected. You know, you don't have to go backwards in the summertime spiritually. Yeah, right? You know, this is for me. I'm just preaching to myself. Justin, this word clearly wasn't for you. It's for me. You don't have to take, thank you. You don't have to take a step backwards spiritually, and then you wind up when school starts thinking, oh my gosh, right, here we are, school starting, and then, oh man, I can't stay connected, and then what happens? We fall back into this rut, and then January rolls around, and this is the year, right? This is a great opportunity in the summertime to grow spiritually. It's actually, I think it's one of the best times to grow spiritually is in the summer. So I just want to encourage you in that area to keep growing spiritually. There's ways at this church that you can stay connected. We have a moms group that Pantera does the first Tuesday of any moms in the house? Few, okay. Some of them admit to being moms, right? We have a moms group that meets. That's great for moms, right? We have a Brandon and Amanda Elliott. They're not here today, but they meet every other Tuesday. That's how good their group is, right? It's very low key in the summertime, just connecting, staying connected. We have a golf group on Wednesday nights. We meet at 5:15 at the golf course. If you're a subpar golfer, you're welcome to come and be with us. Yeah, it's just, there's such an important part of connecting with people. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, but in my experience, it's worth it. It's worth it to stay connected. So I just want to encourage you. This is my word of encouragement today, to stay connected. Starting, like I said, a new series called Good Pharma. How many of you have ever heard of Good Pharma? Nobody has, because it doesn't exist, right? Good Pharma. Don't hold back. Seed your future. You know, spring season, I'm just going to admit this right up front. I'm not a farmer, right? Anything I've ever planted has probably died. So this is just what I have read and what I have come across, right? Spring season, right? You get out of the winter and you get into the spring, right? The spring is a good time to plant, right? And if you've driven around Southwest Missouri enough, there's a smell, right? There's a smell that happens, and that smell is what? It's fertilizer, right? It's money. That's the smell of money for people, right? That means the seed is going in the ground and it's being taken care of, right? Good farmer. We want you to plant good seed. It's really a play on words, right? Good karma is it's rooted in Hindu philosophy that believes in cause and effect, right? If you do good, you get good, right? If you do bad, you get bad, right? Is there anybody in your life that you know is bad that deserves some bad? Anybody? Don't raise your hand. I'm looking. I see. Pray for you over there. But the Bible teaches us, it teaches us good pharma, right? What you sow, you will reap, right? And it's true with crops. If I plant corn, I'm going to reap corn. If I plant soybean, I'm going to reap soybean, right? The same is true with our walk with Jesus. What we sow today, we will reap, right? Today, as you sow your 1 hour into Life Church, you're reaping a harvest. For you parents, one thing I like to do in the mornings is I like to go into the kids' life room and eat some goldfish and just kind of see what their lesson's about, you know? Your kids this morning and probably this month are learning about worship, what it means to worship. You this morning, without even knowing what you've done, you are planting a seed by being here this morning. You are sowing into the lives of your children. And they're going to understand with the little jingle bells and the tambourines and the maracas. They're going to begin to understand at an early age what it means to worship Jesus. What you're sowing today, you will reap. This is more than a philosophy. This is a promise that the Word of God gives us. This will happen. You will reap what you sow. And so I want to take a look at Galatians. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with this passage, Galatians 6, 7 through 10. It's the New International Version. But I want to take the heart of this, and I want to put some context around it a little bit. It's not a note, so you can write this down if you want. Paul applies sowing and reaping principle 3 ways in this passage. And I don't have verse 6, but verse 6 is Christian teachers, right? You'll reap what you sow. He applies it to moral behavior, verse 8, and he applies it to Christian service in verse 9 and verse 10. So in context, that's really what the heart of Galatians 6, 7 through 10 is. But I want to read it. Paul says, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will," everybody say we will. We will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of the believers. I'm going to take a rabbit trail real quick on verse 10. I believe in doing good for every person, but I really believe in doing good for the family of believers. And the family of believers are the people who are sitting in this room. For most of you, it's terrible to say most of you. I'll say for all of you. Just so it sounds better. It's being videoed. I would do anything for you. And it's not that I'm up here and you're down there. I would do anything for you. Now, somebody outside of this place, I'm just going to be honest, I probably wouldn't do that. It's not that I don't care about them and I'm concerned about them, but I just believe that we should be taking care of the family of believers, just an extra little bit. That's just my verse on that. Is that okay? Okay. Whoever sows to please their flesh, if you want to read in Galatians 5, you can read what that looks like, sowing into the flesh, the fleshly desires of a man, right? You know what those desires are because you still experience those desires. You'll reap destruction. But whoever sows to please the Spirit will reap eternal life. A man reaps what he sows. You will reap a harvest if you don't give up. I think this series just marries into our series of Keep Going. It's just a continuation of that series. So when it comes to our choices, when it comes to our words, when it comes to our habits, when it comes to our time, when it comes to our finances, when it comes to our relationships and our marriage, we have the responsibility to sow good seed. I think as believers, we should be leading the way in these areas. We should be leading the way in good habits, good times, good relationships, good marriages. We should be good farmers, right? We should be good farmers. We read on in Ecclesiastes 11, 4 through 6, it says, whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the path of the wind or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle, for you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally well. What I love about this passage is this. Just because you don't understand how it looks doesn't mean you're not supposed to do it, right? I have no idea if you were to ask me how a seed, is it germinates? Is that the right word? I mean, any seed expert out here? Thank you. I have no idea what happens to that seed when I throw it in the ground, right? I do not understand what happens, but God makes it grow, right? Our responsibility as good farmers is to trust that what I am sowing, God is taking care of. Yeah? Yeah. I have one point today. We're going to get into a few other things, but I have one point, and that is this for those of you who are taking notes. I have to decide what my future harvest will look like. I'm going to say that one more time. I have to decide what my future harvest is going to look like. Not what your future is going to look like. What does God's future for your life look like? Not the American dream, not keeping up with the Joneses. What does God have designed for you to do? That's the question we should be asking ourselves. And so, a challenge for us, instead of just seeing your future, start seeding your future. Can I say that again? Instead of just seeing your future, as good farmers, we need to start seeding our future. You get the seed that you're going to reap, right? A farmer doesn't just say, you know what, I've got 10,000 acres out here. Surprise me. Surprise me this year. I don't really know what I want. Let's just see what happens, right? It's not how it works, is it? Get the seed that you want to reap. Do you want a good marriage? Go get it. Do you want to grow spiritually? Get that seed. Come on. right? You want good finances? Go get that seed. You have the power to go get what you need. It is your responsibility to sow the good seed. Man, I'm stuck spiritually in a rut. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Go get the seed. It's available for you. It is there for the taking. Grab it and begin to sow it. Right? I'm going to ask Michael to put a picture up here of this. Isn't this a good-looking field? You know what I see this field? What I would do with this, I would smooth it all out. I'd make a baseball diamond out of that. Wouldn't that be cool? That's not neither here nor there. This field is how God sees us. This is how he sees our lives. Endless opportunities, right? That ground is tilled up. It's beautiful. It is ready for the seed. This is how God sees our future and our lives. He's given us an open field. He's given us all the possibilities and all of the opportunities in our life to make that field grow. And you can either do two things. You can either seed intentionally or you can seed passively. Either way, I think you're beginning to understand this. You will reap a harvest, however you choose to sow. And if you want to sow passive, here's just some weeds, right? Harvest of the passive planter, it's going to produce weeds, right? I hope my future turns out. I hope it all works out in the end. I don't really know, but I really hope God does something with that field so that, boy, at the end of the life, I'm just going to reap something good. What about, this is kind of me sometimes. I'll do it tomorrow. It's kind of me sometimes, right? I'll work on that field tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I don't have what it takes, right? The list can go on and on. We can flood it with weeds. I can't afford it. I can't afford to do this. Can't afford to get a hold of my finances. I don't care, right? I don't really care. Or, man, I just want to have fun, right? We've all been there in these areas. I don't care what my field looks like. Well, that's the harvest that you're going to reap. You can either do it intentionally or you can do it in a passive way. But I do know this, that a harvest is coming, right? And we will reap what we sow. And don't complain about the harvest if you don't sow good seed. There's nothing worse than a complainer. There's probably no complainers in here. That's why it's quiet. Right? Well, I just can't. I just can't do this. Stop sowing that seed. Well, you don't know me. Listen, stop sowing that seed. You have the opportunity to sow good seed. Everybody in this place has a story. I love the stories of those who said, you know what? Yeah, I did have all of this, but I chose to plant a good seed. Don't complain at the end of the harvest, right? Because you chose to sow negativity. Genesis 8:21 says this, as long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. And I just want to bring this to a point again. Just like you can be sure of the seasons, you can be sure of the heat that's coming. It's coming, right? You can be sure that what you reap, you will sow. My encouragement for you is to get the seed that you want. You want a good marriage? Go get it. You want a better relationship with Jesus? Go get it. You want better finances? Go get it. Go get it and start to plan it. Are you with me still? Is this okay? A couple of you. Okay. I'll just preach. Somebody over here, I'll preach it. Preach the rest of the sermon. A few things quickly. Seed killers. I always think it's good to identify, if we can identify some of the things in our life, the seed killers, then it gives us just a better chance. So here's a few things. The first seed killer is fear. Fear. Anything you do for God requires faith. Right? I mean, even to have a relationship with Jesus, you have to have faith. Anything that you choose to do for God, it requires faith. Faith is believing without seeing, right? You will not see the outcome. We put our faith in God. So anytime you have to choose faith, guess what's right around the corner? Fear. The fear seed is waiting for us. What if a farmer were to look out his window and he said, you know what? The weather doesn't look good. I've been listening to the meteorologist. Meteorologists never lie. I'm going to plan my life around what the meteorologist says because they always tell the truth. What if they were to look at the weather forecast and they were to say, I don't think so. I'm scared. I'm scared that this really isn't going to work out. Would that work? It's the same application for us. We can't look outside because if you look outside, I promise you, you will see fear. You will. It's behind every door. It's the fear tactic, right? It's what they use. But instead of sowing fear, choose faith. No fear. Second one is this. If it's God's will, it'll happen, right? How many of you ever heard that one? How many of you have ever said that? Anybody honest enough? I've said it. If it's God's will, it's going to happen. Well, God does have a plan for your life. Guess what it is? It's for you to sow what He gave you. That's the plan that God has for your life. You know, I could put that field up there one more time. Sorry. You can look at that field once it comes up here. There it is. I can look at that field all day long. And I can say, man, I hope that field produces a crop. And not do any work to it. Not sow any seed. I can sit there till I'm blue in the face and say, boy, I just hope that. I hope my circumstances change. Boy, I really hope this works out for me. I really hope there's a future, God. What's going to happen with that field? Absolutely nothing. Well, God, this is where we get frustrated. Well, God, why? Because God has given us a seed to sow. Seed killer. If it's God's plan, it will happen. You play a part. You play a part. Third one is this. You don't know my past. Right? You don't know my past. Well, guess what? You don't know my past. Because my past, I celebrate my 23rd anniversary today. Thank you. My oldest son, Drew, texted us this morning. He's the only son that texted us this morning. And he told us happy anniversary. And Kelly said, well, you know, I can't remember how you said it. You deserve part of the credit because you've been there for all 23 years. But you don't know my past. See, that I could have let that past define me, right? I could have let having a child at 17 out of wedlock. I could have just said, you know what, it's just the way it is, right? This is how I'm always going to be. But we made a choice, right? We're not going to do that. See, because God has this beautiful way of redeeming your past, right? It's what he does. The old is gone, the old is past, and the new is here. We all have a past. And I don't have to know your past to see your future. If you want to tell me your past, great. But it doesn't determine anything about your future. Because what you sow today has nothing to do with the past. It's a fresh, new start. You have the future ahead of you. You're sowing for the next generation, right? You're sowing for the next generation. It's not about you. It's about your kids. It's about your grandkids. This is a good one. Many of you will identify with this. I'm just going to pray for the harvest. How many of you ever heard that? Right? Any old school Christians in here, right? You know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to pray about that. I'm just going to pray for the harvest. I believe in prayer. Listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not making fun of prayer, but there is a beautiful combination of faith and works. And that's just the way it works. Right? Praying about this, praying about your field, it's just not enough. It's not. There's a story in Luke 19. I just happen to have this coin I always have this coin with me. This isn't a prop. It's always with me. In Luke 19 about the mine or the talent, right? Every single person is given one of these, right? It's a gift. It's a talent, right? And if we read in that story, they all three did something with their talent. Some sowed it, right? And they reaped a harvest. But what did the person do? What did the one person do with theirs? They buried it. So you will do something with the talent that God's given you. You'll either sow it or you'll bury it. But the harvest will come, right? And when the king came back, Jesus, what did he say? What did you do with what I gave you? He said, I thought you were a mean man, right? I buried it. You will reap a harvest of what you sow. You can take it and you can sow it and it can grow and it can grow and it can grow, or you can bury it. But every single person in this room has a talent and has a gift. The next one is this: seeing someone else's harvest. Comparison will kill your seed, right? You can get on social media. This is one of the things, I'll just be honest with you, as one of the many things I've learned with this church is I had to quickly identify that if I start comparing myself with other churches, that I'm just going to sit in the corner and boo-hoo all day, right? Because what would happen, I would look and I would see, man, they're doing this. I want to do this. And man, they have this and I want to do this. And it was just a quick reminder that I was like, I can't do this. I cannot sow the seed of comparison because it will kill you. And man, you could say, man, I've been doing this for years. And I don't have what Betty and Bobby have, right? I don't have what I've been living this Christian life. I've been sowing for so many years, and I don't have what they have. Can I just encourage you today to stop comparing and start celebrating what other people's field is doing? Because if you just, all you do is compare, you're going to become bitter, and it's going to become just a nasty seed in your life. So you know what I started to do? I started to celebrate what God was doing in somebody else's field. Hey, thank God for the church down the road that's doing that. That's awesome. I'm behind you. I'm celebrating with you. We need to learn to celebrate what God is doing in other people's lives, because He is doing things in other people's lives, not just your life. Next point. This isn't going to happen in my timeline. How many of you ever said that, right? This isn't happening when I want it to happen. For many of you, you'll remember the first series that we did this year in January was the All In series. Any of you remember that? We were all in, right? We were all in on relationship with Jesus. We were all in on our relationship with one another. We were all in giving. We were all in, right? Well, man, Justin, I've been all in all year, and I ain't seen nothing. Hey, welcome to the club. It's June. It's June, and I ain't had nothing in return. Yeah. Keep sowing, right? That's how this works. I've been sowing into my marriage. I've been sowing into my work. I've been sowing into my finances. I've been doing all the right things for 6 months. Keep doing it. Right? Because there's a lot of things that you're going to sow into this lifetime that you will never reap. You will never see it in this lifetime. But I'm so thankful that I don't care. Right? I'd rather see it in the next lifetime than to see it here. It tells us in Galatians 6:9, Paul says, "Don't become weary in doing good, for at the proper time you'll reap a harvest if you do not give up." Man, Kelly and I have clung to this verse, right? Keep doing good, for at the proper time you will reap a harvest. Yeah? Right? There's been times in our 23 years where I've been hard to live with, right? And it hasn't been easy, I'm sure. But we're going to keep going in these areas, right? We're going to keep doing good because you will reap a harvest. I'll close with this last point, and it's kind of a funny point. Can I end on a funny point? Is that okay? I'm too old. How many old people in here? Old people. I see you back there. Can I just give you a word of encouragement, okay, for all you more mature people in the room? If you're not dead, you're not done. Right? If you're not dead, you ain't done. God has something still for you to do. There's nothing I love more than being around a person. I used to have a pastor like this, Pastor Gary Hay. He was an older gentleman, right? He was infectious with his passion for the Lord. I could have spent hours. I long to be around that man because even in his older age, he still had a passion for the Lord, right? He wasn't interested in going and sitting by a beach somewhere. And all of the things that were going on in his life and are still going on in his life, he had a passion inside of him burning for the Lord. That's where I want to be at the end of my life. I want a passion in 30 and 40 years for the Lord. I want people to want to be around me because of my passion. I want people to be around Kelly and I because in 30 or 40 years, we're still kicking, right? We're still going. Although it might be slow, there's still a passion, right? I'm determined to sow a good seed and to reap a harvest. You know, a Chinese proverb says this, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, right? The second best time is now. I'll use this example. In my backyard, we planted 3 trees, one for each boy. And they're new trees, newer trees. I will never climb in that tree. I should never climb in that tree. I will never climb in that tree, right? The odds are my kids will never climb in those trees. But my grandkids will climb in those trees, right? Sowing and reaping is generational. Life Church wasn't for me. It was for you. It was for your kids. It's for my kids. It's for my grandkids. It's for your grandkids. When we plant good seed, it might not be for us, but it's going to be for our kids. It's going to be for our grandkids. I'll never see it. I'll never climb in that tree. I'll never reap the benefits of the shade of that tree, but my grandkids will, right? Sowing and reaping is generational. I want to encourage you this morning, in whatever area that you're making excuses, to sow a good seed. Keep sowing. Keep being good farmers. This morning, if you'd close your eyes and bow your heads just for a moment. In every service, I want to give the opportunity for those who are in here, you would say, you know what? I don't have a relationship with Jesus. Maybe you would even say, you know what? I have a past. Or maybe I've been through some things and I just don't have that freedom. I don't know what it's like to walk with Jesus. I don't know what it's like to put my faith in him. I don't know what it's like to believe. And this morning, if that's you, I just want to give you the opportunity. Nobody's looking around. Everybody's got their eyes closed. And if that's you in this place, says, you know what, I need Jesus. If you would, I would ask you this morning just to raise your hand, just up and down real quick. You say, you know what, I don't have a relationship with the Lord, but man, today I want one. I want to sow. I want to start sowing good seed in my life. Is there anybody in this place that would say, you know what, that's me? I want to start today. Anybody in here? That's great. Is there somebody? I see it. Yeah. This morning, I want all of us to say this prayer. I see your hands. We're all going to say it together, okay, as a congregation. Just repeat after me. Say, Jesus. Come on, everybody. Jesus, I believe in you. I put my faith in you. I put my trust in you. And today I sow a seed that I know will reap a harvest. And to the best of my ability, I'll follow you. Amen.